Greetings, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I wanted to go over feedback from last week, and then I'm going to move into the announcements and reminders for this week. So in terms of the feedback for last week, the topic of your reading or the theme for that week, for last week, was determining an area of focus. So this is hugely important, of course, because because you're having to narrow down your topic. You're having to narrow your focus with regards to aspects of what you want to research for your dissertation. So everyone did a great job this week, and you all were very thoughtful again in your responses to one another, and just discussing every aspect of the readings. So with meals, developing an area of focus really begins with reconnaissance. And so many of you all discussed, what does this mean and the aspects of reconnaissance. But reconnaissance really informs and serves as your basis of understanding regarding your topic of interest. And so it helps in that, you have to identify thoughts, prior knowledge, and goals of what you want to research. And so, of course, that's huge because you're having to think about what it is that you want to accomplish overall for your dissertation. And so reconnaissance helps you to really kind of flesh out aspects of your topic. Okay. And so the reconnaissance process begins with reflection, okay, on the topic of interest and determining the parameters of interest that you have. So theories that impact your practice and also the educational values that you hold. So those are some of the pieces that you should be considering with regards to the reflection piece. Okay. Also, the next step of reconnaissance was description. And so this allows you to more clearly outline the problems pertaining to your area of interest. So the barriers and the catalysts that impact the problem, or as mentioned in meals, the who, what, when, where, and how of your research topic. Another aspect of this is explanation. Okay, so explanation can be the most difficult piece to nail down when conducting reconnaissance. And so while reviewing the literature, you may find research that offer explanations or that makes connections between constructs. Often explanations can be found in the discussion section of the articles that you all are reading. And also in many, it should be also present in many of the dissertations that you are also using as exemplars for your own research. And so it's important that, while you may have an idea of possible explanation, okay, for the problem that you seek to clarify based on your own daily experiences as educational practitioners, it is extremely important that you utilize the literature to help further inform some of those notions that you have about explaining phenomena or the connections that you feel impact phenomena. Okay, so do that before you develop a hypothesis. It's really important. And so an area of focus will inform both the problem and the purpose statements, okay, for your dissertation. So the problem statement outlines the relevant issues pertaining to your topic, and the purpose statement outlines the goals of your research. So the problem statement is provided in chapter 1 and is followed by the purpose statement, okay? And so there was some discussion about the significance of the study. And so the significance of the study in terms of what's the purpose of that in your dissertations. And so the purpose of this, the significance of the study provides a brief explanation of the contributions of your research. Okay, so how will your study contribute to the existing literature on your specific topic, and how will the outcomes or the research findings of your study inform and improve practice? So those are some of the thoughts that you should have when you're developing the study significance. Okay, so on to the next reading, and I know that you all may have discussed these in different orders, but I'm going, I think, according to how I had it listed in Blackboard. Okay, so Miles and Huberman. So there was a lot of discussion about development of a theoretical framework and a conceptual framework. I know that you all did some reading on that last week, and primarily the discussion pertained to Miles and Huberman's claim about the ability to develop a theoretical framework within 30 minutes. And so, so they discussed the time it should take to develop your preliminary conceptual framework, your preliminary conceptual framework. Um, and so, of course, it would take most people more time to do this. But remember that a conceptual framework is based on your prior knowledge, and involves outlining areas of research interest that pertains to your topic. So you already have a lot of knowledge going into um, this research, because this research stems from your own practice. So, for instance, the conceptual framework that I sent out to everyone, and the notes that's taken from my own dissertation, and so that's based on my prior knowledge. Okay, and so before developing it, though, I did a thorough review of the literature, and so I also used that to inform my first iteration of my conceptual framework. Now, what I sent you all was after many iterations. Okay, and so that's something that you're going to do. You're going to have many versions of your conceptual framework. So as you learn more, as you know more, you're going to make modifications to that conceptual framework. Um, and so the first iteration should be seen as a brain dump. Okay, so basically, what do I know about this topic, and what are the connections that I want to make in this research? Okay, and so although you may want to make certain connections based on your own prior knowledge, once you read the literature will help you to flesh that out and make more accurate connections. Okay, so again, you'll go from a brain dumping version to then a final version. So the brain dumping version is based on your existing knowledge as a practitioner, and then your final version is based on your knowledge post literature review. Okay. Um, and Miles and Huberman, they're preeminent researchers in the field, so that's why it takes them 30 minutes or less to do their conceptual frameworks. But so I want to move on to passion. So many of you all talked about passion because there was a segment in the reading that didn't really pertain to the segment that I wanted y'all to read in Miles and Huberman, but there was some discussion about being motivated about your topic, being passionate about your topic. And so I'll tell you now, passion is hugely important in terms of the completion of your research and in the writing of your dissertation. It is very difficult to write your dissertation and not have passion for the topic. Some people do it. Some people see it as a means to an end. I have a topic. Um, um, I have data. I'm gonna go ahead and crunch the numbers, and I'm going to conduct the interviews and be done. But that's rare, very rare. And so having passion for your topic is very important, and it does help you to motivate and complete your dissertation. So you all brought up some great points here about passion, and you also brought up some great points too about standards and having standards for your students, and standards for your own practice. And so that's also important, and that also informs why it is that you want to do what you do with regards to your research topic. Um, okay, so bias. Um, this is something I know that we talk about from week to week. Um, and so, as I stated previously, all research, quantitative or qualitative, possess a degree of bias. Okay, and so all of the research gone wrong examples that we saw in the ethics unit were all covered, which we covered a couple weeks ago, were all quantitative in nature. Okay, so I know that we often want to look at qualitative as being a bias focused area of research, but they're all bias focused. Okay, and so listen, our research philosophy informs how we conduct research. Okay, and we cannot erase what we believe or what we've come to know, and what we know in terms of our practice, in terms of our lived experiences. Um, but we can put a plan in place to address or to reduce biases that will compromise the ethical practice of research. Okay, and so bias becomes a problem when it compromises the ethical practice of research. And so honestly, we say bias, but in all honesty, it's our belief system. Okay. And so bias is such a negative term, and to a degree, rightfully so, especially if bias is used in a way, or if our prior knowledge is used in a way to make unethical research choices. But what we know and what we've come to know makes us who we are, okay, as educators. Everyone is in the role, you all are in the roles that you are in because of your prior knowledge, because of your passion for helping students, okay, and for helping others. So those are things to consider. And again, those are not negative things, but it only becomes an issue when you use it to conduct research in an unethical way. Okay. So, so remember that having a belief system makes us who we are, and and we have to just make sure that when we conduct research, that we conduct it with the goal of letting the data, provide us with information rather than bending findings to support our belief system. Okay, that's unethical. And we should instead allow the data to inform findings and subsequently our own understanding, okay, of the topic that we are researching. So once we come to learn more and know more about a topic, we should be willing to refine our position or our stance based on the information provided. Okay. And so to not do this, to not revise our stance, or at least to reevaluate our stance, is to really perpetuate the types of harmful studies, okay, and the types of harmful research and harmful beliefs that we saw happen in the ethics unit. Okay, so maybe not to that degree, but on some level, it can be harmful if we're not willing to rethink or revise our stance with regards to certain research topics or certain things that we thought were evidence-based once we get to learn more about a certain research topic, okay? So you have to be willing to be flexible in that regard. And so one thing I mentioned in the feedback was that, if you're ethical, it's all about how you conduct research. And so ethical research is being transparent, it's being evidence-based, and it's being rigorous, okay, in terms of how you conduct your study. And so these are the components of excellent research. If you do those things, you're going to be absolutely fine, okay? So research questions really should inform your conceptual framework. I'm going to go back to that about the conceptual frameworks and the role of research questions and conceptual frameworks, and their role with creating research questions. So research questions should really inform your conceptual framework and vice versa, because the research question explicitly or implicitly outlines the existing areas of connection within your research. So in turn, your conceptual framework will help to refine your research questions. So your research question really outlines the parameters of what you want to study, okay? And so therefore, that should help you to really hone in on the type of conceptual framework that will work for your study. So if you know the parameters of what you want to research, then you have an idea about the connections that you want to make, and that will help you to develop your conceptual framework. But once you've done the research, and you refine your conceptual framework, then you should go back and revisit your research questions and make sure that it's all in alignment. Okay. So research questions should be succinct as they narrow the focus of your study. Okay. There was a mentioning of someone having 13 research questions, and so the question becomes, then what are you researching? Okay. And so it's what's best is to have research questions that are succinct and narrow, and that way your research cannot be confused with other types of research, but rather for the reader, it's understood exactly what it is that you're trying to investigate. Okay. And so sub-research questions was something that was also brought up, and so they are helpful to help clarify your primary research questions. But I often advise students to just use these as clarifying questions to really to help you, again, refine your research questions, but also to serve as a purpose of generating ideas about future areas of research. Okay, so if you have these sub research questions, you can use those to kind of generate ideas about future areas of study that stem from your own research topic. And so you would place any kind of implications for future research in your chapter 5. And so these sub-research questions can help you to generate ideas for that. Okay. So chapter 2 of Efron and Rabbit. So this is about literature review and developing a literature review. And so the literature review helps to inform and guide your research. And so, um, and so as you all discussed, reviewing the literature really helps to identify areas in need of further investigation. Thoughtful researchers will almost always make suggestions about areas in need of further investigation. And so, like I mentioned, this goes to the implications for research. And so, if you are, um, okay, sorry. So if you, so if you are really rigorous about conducting your research, then you're all for future areas of research, okay, or future implications. And so your literature review will help you to identify that. Um, and so, and they will also write about it. So as you're reading other research articles, as you're reading other dissertations, make sure that you go to the implications for future research. And so this will help you to avoid conducting a study that already exists. It will allow you to save time and effort replicating the work that's already been done. And so also searching the reference list is a great way of becoming familiar with the literature. And so we call this approach purling. I think I mentioned this before, possibly in, in during one of the Saturday meetings. But purling is really helpful. If you use the work of other researchers to further your knowledge on the topic, then you're working smarter, not harder. um, and so also in reviewing the research of other authors, they've done the hard work of reviewing the literature, okay, and then synthesizing research related to your topic. So take a look at how other authors have conducted their literature reviews, and you can use research that they've used by looking at the reference list and drilling from that. Okay. And so also, when you review the literature, it helps you to become an educated consumer of research. And so there is a method to reviewing articles that I shared in the feedback. And so typically I suggest that you read the abstract, okay, and the discussion sections of the paper first, make notes, and then go back. If you feel that after you've read the abstract and the discussion sections of the article, if you feel like this is a good fit for your study, then go back and read all that's in between. Okay, but an assessment of the abstract and an assessment of the discussion section, those are that will help you to better kind of ascertain whether or not the research really pertains to your own research topic. Okay. Um, So, with regards to the annotation assignment, I want to make sure that I touch on that. So, you can use articles that you're currently using for your dissertation, literature review, okay, as well as new articles if you need to expand your dissertation. If you need to expand your dissertation literature review. I know some of you all have completed your candidacy defense, while others are still preparing for candidacy. Okay, and so if you can. So you can use this assignment, okay, to expand any aspect of your literature review if this is the feedback that you've gotten from your committee, okay, and your committee being myself, Dr. Hutchinson and Dr. White. Okay, so if we've said, hey, you need to expand an aspect of your literature review, then use this assignment to do that. Okay. So again, you can use a combination of existing research that you found as well as new research. But I would tell you to use this as an opportunity to expand in areas that need to be expanded upon. Okay. Let's see here. So students will generally use a range of sources for their literature reviews. So they'll use a range of sources to develop their literature. And so most often I'll see peer-reviewed articles, which is what we typically want to see. But peer-reviewed articles and government reports and dissertations are typically used in the development of a literature review. Okay, and so for your methods section, you'll probably have to use books, from your research courses as a resource to justify and clarify your methodological decisions for your study. Okay, and so you would typically see books for the method section, and you'll see peer-reviewed articles typically for the literature review. And the reason for that is that peer-reviewed articles are kind of the latest, in terms of what's out there with regards to the literature that pertains to your topic, and the research that pertains to your topic. And dissertations are really great too, because a lot of other doctoral students have done a lot of the work in terms of developing literature that can be closely tied to your own topic. So that's another reason why we see students that will use dissertations as well. Okay. So lastly, the literacy matrix. So it's really helpful. I know that it seems like it's a lot of work. Okay, but it's helpful to organize the literature. It's helpful to determine patterns in the literature, to determine areas in the literature where you have reached saturation. Okay, and so saturation is where you're conducting a review of the literature, and then at some point you keep coming back to the same folks. Okay, that's how you know that you have thoroughly searched the literature. Okay, and so another reason why the literacy matrix is helpful is it helps to determine remaining areas of the literature in further need of investigation. Okay, so I recently had a student that identified a pattern of deficit model research pertaining to students and data. Pertaining to students and underserved communities. Okay, so now the student can identify non-deficit research pertaining to these students and data that can be useful to impact practice in a positive way. Okay, so you can use similar organizing tools to identify the number of qualitative and quantitative studies that you have reviewed for your research, and so that's where the literacy matrix can be extremely helpful. Okay. All right, so with regards to announcements for this week, you all have a discussion video that's due this Saturday on the 29th. And so make sure that you post that in your week 6 discussion board. So make sure that you post that labeled as week 6 discussion video, okay? Also be sure to review the feedback provided in the email that I've sent to everyone, okay, regarding your discussions. The readings are also in the week 6 folder. This week, I think I have it listed in the syllabus to begin work on your research questions, so please do that. And again, virtual office hours, Thursdays from 6 to 7:30. I will be available via Skype and Google Hangouts, okay, if you all have any questions. With regards to the panel discussion, what we've decided to do is to have alumni come and serve on the panel, okay? So I know that initially I mentioned to you all having second-year doctoral students, but I met with Dr. Hutchinson and Dr. White and Dr. Akron, who teaches the other section of action research, that we decided to have alumni serve on the panel. Okay, so I appreciate everyone who emailed me about serving on the panel. Well, there'll be other opportunities to help out in various ways, and I'll be sure to let y'all know. Okay, all right. I hope you have a great week, and again, reach out to me if you have any questions. Okay, thanks. Bye.